I've enjoyed watching him and TJ back on NFL Primetime on ESPN Plus, or as I'm calling it, the Plus. It was the fastest 3 minutes on halftime last night. The old fastest 3 minutes from Chris and TJ. Here's a little taste.
Ravens and Texans supposed to be a showdown at the Big Crab Cake. Lamar Jackson made a mockery of that. Goes whoop and whoop and then whoop and then look at him go whoop. It's a whoop. It's a 5 whooper.
A 5 whooper. I was literally laughing out loud at home. And it's just great to see. Good friend, and I'm thrilled to be able to call him a friend and a longtime colleague, Chris Berman, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Chris?
Well, Rich, if I can still crack you up after these years, and I've done my job. You know, that sound effect, and nice to be with you, and happy holidays to
Same
everybody.
To you.
We, now, first of all, it's just been a gas with Tommy, but specifically with Lamar Jackson. So whoop was kind of invented for Barry Sanders, right?
Sure.
Well, not that he's the first, but this is Barry Sanders like every week. So we get to bring out Curly from the Three Stooges and make you laugh at home. That's what we're doing.
And it was great. I literally laughed out loud. A five whooper. And you know, I'm wondering what has it been like to be paired with TJ again, Chris? I imagine you thought you probably wouldn't get to do primetime again, like you did for all those years.
Well, correct. I mean, we can't do it on over-the-air TV. The laws, the deals, the TV deals, and that's been that way, as you know, since '05. But first of all, Tommy is one of my best friends in life, let alone TV. So just to do the show, to do it with one of your best buddies, and I never thought that would happen. I did suggest to our new president, who we like immensely, Jimmy Patero, that look, the ESPN Plus is a big directive here, the parent company Disney, and I think if we can get the rights to do primetime on that, I'd consider coming back. A, because it's fun. B, I think the viewers, or what do you call them on the phone? The phoners. Those are the phone booths. I mean, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And Tommy was just unheard of bonus. But I also feel, and I think you being an old-time ESPN person will get this. When we started, Rich, we had 3 million subscribers. Well, the phone, or ESPN Plus, had like what in the 2s when this went on in September. And I think we can move the bar and help you one last time establish it. So it was a win on every count. But look, the fans love it. It's the 100th year of football. It's the 40th year of ESPN. Aren't we in the business to give people what they want? And maybe not everybody loves me. I mean, that's fine with that. But here's highlights, and it's a hell of a show.
It is.
We can now access all the games. But really, you're not – I still think, and you do this sort of show, I mean, I still think you want to sit down and have a full meal. Okay, I've seen the plays, I've seen this, but I didn't see Tampa and Atlanta. Well, they didn't play like you know what I'm saying. I didn't see that game, and give it to me in 3 minutes, and give me another one in 3 minutes, and lo and behold, it's 45 minutes, Rich, without any commercials, which is. You think it's
amazing.
Tough to take a sip of water on a live show, but you have a commercial break? Oh, my God.
But it's great, Chris, because, again, I think in our current day and age, those who are in charge of sports television products and distribution are assuming people are seeing everything on their phones, whether it is through Twitter or is through just being able to get a text from somebody, or they are watching it live through some sort of streaming feed, that you've already gotten that information. And instead, now all fans want to know is analysis or argument over who was right and who was wrong, as opposed to sitting down and getting a story told to them by somebody who is expert at telling a story and has fun doing it, and a conversation about what happened, not through the prism of X's and O's or argument, just two guys talking. And I can't get enough of it, Chris. I can't.
Well, neither can we doing it. It's a blast. It's something I would watch whether we do it or not. And look, it's for the fan. It's for, again, to reiterate, and I've always thought that premise which you just laid out was not wrong per se in some way, but I do feel every now and then you want to give me a half hour, give me 45 minutes, give me the full meal of, especially in a football Sunday. Give it to me, even if I've seen a lot of it, but not pieced together back to back to back. And it's just been to go back to your first question. Yeah, it's unbelievably fun, but it's even better than I thought it would be, and probably, not speaking for Tommy, it may be better than he thought it would be. I mean, it's fun. We watch the games, we do the show, which was the best show that I've ever done, at least show, and we get to do it again. And if I am Bob Seger, and not to compare myself with a friend of mine, but going out on a final tour, why wouldn't it be NFL Primetime? It's a gift, and I hope the fans out there think it's a gift, and I'm glad you do.
Yeah, I sure do. It's on ESPN Plus, and it's on Sunday nights, but it's also available via replay through Wednesday of every week. So if you missed it this Sunday, you can go to ESPN Plus and get it right now. As I went to break, Chris, the wagon circling is working right now. I mean, I think they're for real. I don't know if a lot of people would agree. The kid at quarterback can make some plays with his arm and his legs. John Brown is putting together a season that only people who own him in fantasy leagues, I think, are paying attention to. How viable do you think these Bills are, Chris?
Well, I think in the big picture, Rich, and if you look at every team, starting with New England, we don't have time to analyze the whole thing but everybody has some flaws. I mean, which is true all the time. But Buffalo's got a really nice defense, and I think that we started to see the turn. Not that if you score 20, you win all the games anymore. But we don't have a year like last year, Rich. It's 54-51, right? The Rams and the Chiefs.
Right.
43-40, or 45-42. We'll have some of those, but the Super Bowl was kind of the kickoff of, bring your defense. That may count for a little more the next year. And I think we've seen a lot of that this year. So on that premise, Buffalo has a really nice defense. Do they have Bruce Smith at defensive end? No, but they have a really good team defense, which is Sean McDermott's forte anyway, and Leslie Frazier. So can they score in the 20s? That's the question for Buffalo, because they lost a game in which they gave up 19. They got 16 2 weeks ago to Cleveland. So can they score in the 20s? If so, then they're definitely viable, because, as you know, defense is portable, and, they're not going to win the division. They could, but so they'll be on the road for every game they play if they're lucky enough to make the playoffs, and defense is portable. In bad weather, it works. So in that way, yes, and if you look at, so New England and Baltimore, they're head and shoulders above everybody at the moment. The Chiefs sort things out. So if you look at just those two teams, Buffalo bring in a defense, they can make some noise. Yes, I believe that.
Yeah, I know, and it looks like they may have to go. They could wind up, say, in Indianapolis or Houston for a wild card weekend playoff contest, or even Tennessee. And that one isn't out of the realm for Buffalo to actually win a playoff game for the first time in forever. And then one of your adopted NFC teams with the 49ers. They bring in their defense too. I mean, who is the best team in the NFC based on what you can tell, Chris Berman, through 11 weeks?
That's a very good question, NFC-wise. First of all, Rich, isn't it nice that in the year they bring back NFL Primetime, we get the 49ers and the Bills playing good football? I thought that was very nice.
That's right.
Best team as we sit now. I might lean to New Orleans. I know the 49ers only have one loss. I get it, and that'll be a huge game down there in a couple weeks. Only because of the balance, and we're looking at 6-10. I mean, we're looking at San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams in the West. We're looking at Green Bay, Minnesota. We're looking at New Orleans. That's 6, and then pick a team in the, let's just say 7. Who's the best balanced? I lean to New Orleans. Now, Drew doesn't look quite right yet, I get it. But every team kind of lost the game 2 weeks ago, and they all came back and won. So to answer your question, best balance, New Orleans. But here's Aaron Rodgers. Here's that San Francisco defense. Here's Russell Wilson, who I picked before the year to be the MVP, and we'll see. So what do you think? I mean, that's a tight, a couple weeks ago it looked like Minnesota might have the best balance, although they don't have. I like the quarterback, but Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are, a different breed, as is Drew Brees at his peak.
I am agreeing with you because I still, in terms of balance and in terms of experience and in terms of being able to put points on the board and in being able to take away what a team can do with takeaways, the Saints still add up. They still add up to all of that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they still add up when it comes down to it. Who will be able to consistently do it? Who can do it in your house? Whose house would be tough for you to win in? And then I'd still just buy into football god stuff, whether it is, as you pointed out, your two favorite teams or adopted teams are playing well when your show is put back on the air on ESPN Plus, just everything. The fact that the Saints won it all in Miami, it's 10 years later. I don't know. I put it all together, and I still think that the Saints, despite that slip-up, a clunker happens every now and then. I'm just going to say that's an outlier and see what the Saints look like for the next 6 weeks.
Well, and if you go the football gods theory, which, you could go broke predicting, they're owed one, right? I'm not saying that that's why they would then advance to the Super Bowl, but that's another thing that certainly lines up. We don't have to rehash January.
Well, it's also the year before, too, that miracle that Minnesota pulled off. I mean, back-to-back years for the Saints to be knocked out in those gutting fashions. I hear you. Chris Berman here on the Rich Eisen show. So the NFL 100 all-time team show is on Friday night on NFL Network. I'm
fired up to see it.
Thank you, Chris.
I don't know. I voted on it, and that's a year and a half ago. You know, and I don't. I don't know anything.
We taped it in May, and Belichick is dynamite, Chris. I mean, he is so good at being the analyst for this show along with Collinsworth. He is so very good. It's going to blow a lot of people away.
Well,
I'm telling you.
Let me just aside, and I know Bill pretty well, and every time through the years, we get into a discussion about not so what are you going to do at left tackle, but so let's talk about, well, for example, this is years ago now when he passed Curly Lambeau. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of homework on Curly Lambeau. I mean, we know who he is, but you do some reading, some articles, some this and that, and he knew all about it. Not because he was passing him, just because he loves the history of the game. Now, on this committee, and Bill probably told you this when he taped the show, maybe he didn't. So he went back and looked at film of guys in the 30s and the 40s, and linemen in the 30s and the 40s. Well, Bill Belichick is going to look, and this is where all our 26 or 27 or 28 person panel. We're listening to, I went back and looked at Mel Hein and XYZ for 2 minutes. Whoa. I wasn't that impressed when I first looked at Bronco Nagurski, but the more I looked at him, whoa. Now, who am I to question?
That's right.
He went back to look at Bronco Nagurski. Yeah, so, and I will say this, and I called him privately before I made my final vote. Not checking, I hadn't decided, but I wanted to run a few of the borderline. For example, in our final ballot, we had to pick 10 quarterbacks. Do you know the guy? I'm not mentioning them. Do you know the guys you have to cut? To make only 10 quarterbacks? Well, 10's a lot. No, it's not a lot.
Exactly.
Because the first 7 or 8 in almost every position are obvious. We're not ranking in order. So back to Bill, I ran a lot of the positions I didn't tell him who I was leaning like. I gave him 3 names. Sometimes I have one spot. Give me what you think. He had some on everybody, whether they were, from the 40s or the 50s, or more likely 70s or 80s, who early in his career he was an assistant and coached against. Well, and it's awesome.
He brings that to the broadcast too, Chris. For the players of that era, 30s and 40s, who make the team, because there are that do make the team. We let, or the NFL Films people, obviously, who are producing it, had Belichick run through those guys. He was the one who talked about those guys through the Bellustrator, is what it's called, where he does the coach's clicker with whatever grainy film they could unearth for some of these players. And the things that he would say for these guys, we were all blown away. The same thing as you were like, whoa, we had the same reaction too on the set. And the reverence that he would have, say, for the old Baltimore Colts, because, you know, he grew up watching those guys. The way that he would talk about them with a certain excitement, which is the only word to put it for him. And it was great. And here's one of my favorite stories that he would tell about, I can't reveal which guy, but there was a guy who does make the team at quarterback, and he talked about how he was at a camp, and this quarterback was there, and he goes, well, I didn't catch passes from the quarterback. I was the center for my team, so I snapped him the ball. And and I said to Collinsworth, I'm like, is that the most Belichick thing that he could have possibly said there?
He's you can't talk enough football with them. I mean, because as you know, because you do a wonderful job at that banquet every year at the Hall of Fame, and I've been fortunate enough to be the MC for all these years. But that's not the point. The point is, I'd often see him in August, you know, at training camp or something, after the Hall of Fame, of course. And he'd want to hear stories of guys I might have run into, you know, that were there saluting their teammates or whatever, and he couldn't listen enough. He's all about football and so respects the history of the game. And I will say this: I'll say the player, because I'm not saying who voted. I didn't ask him who he voted for. He didn't ask me who I voted for. One name I brought up was Fran Tarkenton, who I think gets completely overlooked at 47,000 yards. Yeah, but no. He had the most yards at the time. So I said, Bill, Fran Tarkenton is on the phone, lowers his voice. Well, Boomer, remember a couple of years I was at Detroit toward the end of his run with the Vikings, lowered his voice even more. Boomer, he was a problem. He said that twice in 3 sentences. He was a problem. And okay, I don't even need any analysis, right?
I know. I mean, when he coordinated against some, he coached against some, he grew up watching some. I mean, his dad was a coach of the first variety in the Mid-Atlantic area. He was exposed. I mean, he's perfect for this. I can't wait for you to see this.
I'm excited. I was honored to be a part of it, and you must have had a gas doing it.
Amazing.
I'll just throw in, and I'm sure these two guys aren't on it, so look, it's not for me to, but I'm a historian, you know, I'm a history major in American history, let alone football, but most of the guys on the panel forgot more football than I'll ever know. I mean, you know the list of who was on there. Mm-hmm. Hello, you know, Bill Belichick, Don Shula, John Madden, Tony Dungy. I mean, we go on and on, right? Ozzie and Dan Fouts, and I'm leaving tons of people out, and Bill Polian, and Ernie Accorsi, and what am I doing on it? It was more like, how did I get in here? But at any rate, I gave a speech for Jim Thorpe and Red Grange, okay? And Jim Thorpe, I know, didn't even make the final ballot because I know what the final ballot, but I said, look, I'm just saying it's like voting for the MVP a little bit for me, just a few. Without those two guys, we're not having this meeting, so I'm voting for both of them. Now, did I leave out one or two? Oh, my God, you left out X and Y? Yeah. Did I feel good about it? No. I felt Jim Thorpe and Red Grange should be represented if we're calling 100 players. Now, but that's my interpretation of it's not who ran for the most yards. You know, that's a stat. Mm-hmm. So it was fun. And parenthetically, we're having a show on Christmas Eve. Maybe you're seeing it on a Monday night. I've done my top 50 plays. Yep. And although I lean, and like last night, we had a bunch of Jim Brown runs. Like TV makes it a little different than here's a list, right, Rich?
Right.
I mean, it's different. So, but we're putting them all together on a show on Christmas Eve. My top 50 that are being released 3 at a time on Monday Night Countdown. So that'll be maybe under everybody's tree. The whole thing is fun with the 100th anniversary. Look, we love pro football, and it's a time to salute and maybe even educate those that never saw or never hardly even heard of Gale Sayers. I'm not even talking about, you know, Red Grange or Sammy Baugh or Don Hudson. I mean, Gale Sayers, to us, it's whoa. to anybody under 45 or 50. Who? It's fun to see that stuff and educate.
Chris, you're the man. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Great. The fastest 3 minutes. Loved it. NFL Primetime. Loving it. Sunday nights exclusively on ESPN Plus with Tom Jackson, TJ, available via replay through Wednesday each week. Christmas Eve, top 50 NFL plays is part of Chris Berman's extraordinary contribution along with the NFL 100 team to the NFL 100 campaign. I appreciate you appearing on the Rich Betty Davis Eisen show. Chris, thank you.
Kim Carnes will sing the national anthem in just a moment. Nice to be with you. Best of the fam, and
Same to
keep
you, Chris.
up the work you're doing. I can't wait to watch that show of yours.
Means a lot. Take care, Chris. We'll chat soon.
See you, pal.
You got it. That's Chris Berman, everybody.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.